Has anyone ever told you that sometimes the best thing you can say is nothing at all? It may seem counterintuitive in a world that values self-expression and speaking your mind. But I've discovered that there are certain situations in life where silence truly is golden. You see, words are incredibly powerful. They have the ability to heal or to hurt, to inspire or to discourage, to clarify or to confuse. And once they leave our lips, we can never take them back. That's why it's so important to choose our words carefully and to know when it's best to stay silent. Through my own life experiences and observations, I've identified 5 key situations where holding your tongue and embracing silence can be the wisest course of action. These are the moments when saying less says more. The times when keeping quiet can speak volumes about your character, your wisdom, and your emotional intelligence. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, but I'm an honest person. I believe in speaking my truth and letting others know exactly how I feel, and I absolutely respect that. Honesty and authenticity are admirable qualities, and there's certainly a time and a place for expressing yourself openly and directly. But here's the thing, there's a difference between honesty and reactivity, between assertiveness and aggression, between standing up for yourself and causing unnecessary harm to others or to yourself. And that's where the power of silence comes in. You see, silence is not weakness, it's not passivity or avoidance or repression. On the contrary, silence is a sign of great strength, restraint, and self-control. It's a way of responding rather than reacting, of taking a step back and considering the bigger picture before opening your mouth. I think about it, how many times have you said something in the heat of the moment that you later regretted? How many relationships have been damaged or opportunities lost because of a careless comment or a knee-jerk reaction? How much unnecessary drama and conflict could have been avoided if you had simply taken a deep breath and chosen to stay silent? That's the beauty of silence. It gives you the space to pause, to reflect, to choose your words and your actions wisely. It allows you to communicate not just with your voice, but with your presence, your body language, your energy. And it can be a powerful tool for diffusing tense situations, for preserving your own peace of mind, and for building stronger, more authentic relationships with others. So what are these 5 situations where silence is the best policy? Let's dive in and explore them together. The first situation is when you're angry or upset. We've all been there, someone says or does something that pushes our buttons, and we feel that surge of emotion rising up in our chest. Our face flushes, our heart races, and we have the overwhelming urge to lash out, to give that person a piece of our mind. But here's the thing, responding in anger rarely leads to a positive outcome. When we're in the grip of strong emotions, our judgment is clouded, and we're more likely to say things we don't mean or to escalate the situation unnecessarily. We may feel a momentary sense of satisfaction from unleashing our fury, but in the long run, it often does more harm than good. That's why when you feel yourself getting angry or upset, the best thing you can do is to take a step back and stay silent. Give yourself some time and space to calm down, to process your emotions, and to gain some perspective on the situation. Take a few deep breaths, go for a walk, or find a healthy outlet for your feelings, like journaling or exercise. And when you do feel ready to address the issue, do so from a place of calm and clarity. Choose your words carefully and focus on expressing yourself assertively but respectfully. Remember, the goal is not to win an argument or to prove a point, but to communicate effectively and to find a resolution that works for everyone involved. The second situation where silence is golden is when you're tempted to gossip or speak badly about someone. Let's face it, we've all engaged in a little bit of gossip from time to time. It can be tempting to bond with others over shared grievances or to feel a sense of superiority by putting someone else down. But gossip is a dangerous game. Not only does it erode trust and damage relationships, but it also reflects poorly on your own character. When you speak badly about someone behind their back, you're revealing more about yourself than you are about them. You're showing that you're willing to betray confidences, to judge others harshly, and to engage in petty behavior. So the next time you're tempted to join in on a gossip session or to make a snide comment about someone, pause and ask yourself, is this really necessary? Is it kind? Is it constructive? If the answer is no, then it's best to keep your mouth shut and to find a more positive topic of conversation. Remember, you have the power to set the tone for your interactions with others. By choosing to stay silent when tempted to gossip, you're sending a clear message that you value integrity, loyalty, and respect. You're showing that you're someone who can be trusted, who rises above pettiness, and who treats others with kindness and compassion. The third situation where silence is the way to go is when you're in the presence of someone who is grieving or going through a difficult time. When someone we care about is suffering, our first instinct is often to try to fix the problem or to offer words of comfort and advice. We want to say something, anything to ease their pain and to make them feel better. But sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply to be present and to listen. To sit with someone in their grief or their struggle without judgment or expectation. To offer a listening ear, a shoulder to cry on, or a hand to hold. You see, when someone is going through a tough time, they don't always need us to have all the answers or to solve their problems for them. They may just need to feel heard, understood, and supported. They may need the space to process their emotions and to find their own way forward. And that's where the power of silence comes in. By staying quiet and allowing someone to share their feelings without interruption or unsolicited advice, we're giving them a precious gift. We're showing them that we respect their journey, that we trust in their resilience, and that we're here for them no matter what. So the next time you're with someone who is grieving or going through a challenging time, resist the urge to fill the silence with platitudes or suggestions. Instead, simply be present. Listen with an open heart and an open mind. Let them know that you're there for them, that you care about them, and that you're willing to sit with them in the discomfort and the pain. Remember, sometimes the most powerful thing we can say is nothing at all. Sometimes our silent presence and our loving attention are all that's needed to help someone heal and to find their way back to wholeness. The fourth situation where silence is the best approach is when you're in a heated argument or a contentious debate. We've all been in those situations where emotions are running high, where opinions are clashing, and where everyone is talking over each other, trying to make their point heard. It can be tempting to jump into the fray, to raise your voice, and to try to dominate the conversation. After all, you have important things to say, and you want to make sure that your perspective is being considered. But here's the thing, when everyone is talking, no one is listening. And when no one is listening, no real communication or understanding can take place. All that happens is that everyone gets more entrenched in their own positions, more defensive and more reactive, and the chances of finding common ground or reaching a resolution diminish. That's why in a heated argument or debate, sometimes the wisest thing you can do is to stay silent and to listen. To really hear what the other person is saying, without interrupting or mentally formulating your rebuttal. To try to understand their perspective, even if you don't agree with it. By staying quiet and listening actively, you're creating the space for genuine dialogue and exchange of ideas. You're showing that you're open to learning, to considering other viewpoints, and to finding a way forward that works for everyone involved. And when you do speak, do so calmly, clearly, and respectfully. Focus on expressing your own thoughts and feelings rather than attacking or blaming others. Use I statements like I feel or I think rather than use statements which can come across as accusatory or judgmental. Remember, the goal of any healthy argument or debate is not to win, but to understand and to find a resolution that everyone can live with. And sometimes the key to achieving that goal is to embrace the power of silence, to listen deeply, and to communicate with care and compassion. The fifth and final situation where silence is the best policy is when you're in doubt or unsure of what to say. We've all had those moments where we're put on the spot, where someone asks us a question or makes a comment that catches us off guard. Our mind goes blank, and we feel pressured to say something, anything, to fill the awkward silence. But here's the thing, there's no shame in admitting that you don't have all the answers or that you need some time to think before responding. In fact, it's a sign of great wisdom and self-awareness to be able to say, I don't know, or I need to give that some more thought before I can give you a full answer. You see, we live in a culture that values quick thinking, decisive action, and the ability to always have something to say. But sometimes the most intelligent and thoughtful response is to stay silent, to take a step back, and to give yourself the time and space you need to process information and to formulate a considered opinion. By embracing silence in moments of doubt or uncertainty, you're showing that you value accuracy over speed, substance over style. You're demonstrating that you're willing to be vulnerable, to admit what you don't know, and to seek out more information or perspectives before making a judgment or taking a stand. And when you do speak, your words will carry more weight and credibility because they'll be coming from a place of genuine reflection and understanding rather than from a knee-jerk reaction or a desire to sound smart or in control. So the next time you find yourself in a situation where you're not sure what to say, take a deep breath and give yourself permission to be silent. To take a moment to gather your thoughts, to ask clarifying questions, or to simply say, I need some time to think about that before I can give you a full response. Remember, silence is not a weakness or a failing. It's a sign of strength, of self-awareness, and of a commitment to speaking and acting with integrity and authenticity. As we come to the end of our exploration of the 5 situations where silence is the best approach, I want to leave you with a few final thoughts and reflections. First, I want to acknowledge that staying silent in these situations is not always easy. It can feel uncomfortable, vulnerable, or even scary to hold your tongue when every fiber of your being is urging you to speak up or to react. It takes practice, patience, and a willingness to sit with discomfort in order to cultivate the habit of thoughtful, intentional communication. But I promise you, the rewards of embracing silence in these moments are well worth the effort. By choosing to stay quiet when you're angry, when you're tempted to gossip, when you're in the presence of grief, when you're in a heated argument, or when you're in doubt, you're not only improving your relationships and your communication skills, but you're also growing as a person. You're developing greater self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and the ability to respond rather than react. You're learning to trust in the power of your own presence and your own listening skills, rather than always needing to have the right words or the perfect solution. And most importantly, you're cultivating a deeper sense of peace, both within yourself and in your interactions with others. You're creating the space for genuine connection, understanding, and growth, and you're inviting more love, compassion, and wisdom into your life and into the world around you. So my invitation to you today is to start small, to notice the moments in your own life where you might benefit from staying silent, and to experiment with holding your tongue and listening deeply. To be patient with yourself as you learn and grow, and to celebrate the progress you make along the way. Remember, silence is not about repressing your feelings or your opinions. It's about choosing to express them in a way that is thoughtful, intentional, and in service of the highest good for yourself and for others. And when you do choose to speak, let your words be guided by love, by truth, and by a deep respect for the humanity and the dignity of every person you encounter. Let your voice be a force for healing, for connection, and for positive change in the world. Because ultimately, that's what communication is all about. It's not just about expressing ourselves, but about creating a world where everyone feels heard, valued, and understood. A world where we can come together across our differences and our disagreements and find common ground in our shared humanity and our shared hopes for a better future. And it all starts with the simple, powerful act of knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, of choosing our words and our actions with care and with intention, and of trusting in the wisdom and the guidance of our own inner voice. So as you go forth from this moment, I invite you to carry these teachings with you, to let them be a source of strength, of inspiration, and of guidance as you navigate the ups and downs of life and relationships. And most of all, I invite you to trust in yourself, to know that you have within you all the wisdom, all the courage, and all the compassion you need to communicate with clarity, with kindness, and with love. Because when we communicate from that place of deep authenticity and connection, there's no limit to the joy, the healing, and the transformation that's possible for ourselves and for the world around us. As we continue to explore the power and wisdom of silence, I want to dive deeper into each of the 5 situations we've discussed and offer some additional insights and practical strategies for putting these teachings into action. Let's start with the first situation when you're angry or upset. As we've seen, responding in anger rarely leads to a positive outcome. It can be easy to get caught up in the heat of the moment and say things we later regret. But with practice and intention, we can learn to use silence as a tool for self-regulation and emotional management. One strategy that can be helpful is to create a pause button for yourself. This is a mental cue or physical gesture that reminds you to take a step back and give yourself some space before reacting. It could be something as simple as taking a deep breath, counting to 10, or even visualizing a literal pause button in your mind. When you feel yourself getting triggered or upset, hit that pause button and give yourself permission to take a moment of silence. Use that time to check in with yourself and notice what you're feeling in your body. Are your muscles tense? Is your heart racing? Are you feeling hot or flushed? By bringing your awareness to your physical sensations, you can start to create some distance between yourself and your emotions. You can recognize that the anger or upset is a temporary state and that you have the power to choose how you respond to it. Another helpful strategy is to practice reframing your thoughts. When we're angry, our mind can get stuck in a loop of negative self-talk and blaming others. We might tell ourselves things like, "They always do this to me," or "I can't believe they're so inconsiderate." But the reality is that our thoughts are not always accurate or helpful. They're often based on assumptions, interpretations, and past experiences that may or may not be relevant to the current situation. So when you find yourself getting caught up in angry or blaming thoughts, take a moment to pause and question them. Ask yourself, is this really true? Is there another way to look at this situation? What would a wise and compassionate observer say about what's happening here? By challenging your own thoughts and looking for alternative perspectives, you can start to diffuse the charge of your anger and find a more balanced and constructive way to respond. And remember, it's okay to take some time and space to process your emotions before addressing the situation. You don't have to react immediately just because someone has pushed your buttons. Give yourself permission to step away, take a walk, or do something else to calm and center yourself before re-engaging. The goal is not to suppress your anger or pretend it doesn't exist, but rather to create a healthy outlet for it and to respond in a way that aligns with your values and your highest self. Moving on to the second situation, when you're tempted to gossip or speak badly about someone, it's important to remember that our words have power. They can create connection or division, healing or harm. And when we engage in gossip, we're often contributing to a culture of negativity and judgment that ultimately hurts everyone involved. One way to avoid the temptation to gossip is to practice shifting your focus from what's wrong with others to what's right with them. When you find yourself wanting to criticize or complain about someone, take a moment to pause and consider their positive qualities or the challenges they might be facing. This doesn't mean you have to ignore or excuse hurtful behavior, but rather that you can choose to respond with empathy and compassion rather than judgment and blame. Another strategy is to ask yourself whether the conversation you're about to have is truly necessary or helpful. Is there a constructive purpose to your words, or are you simply venting your frustrations or seeking validation from others? If you're not sure, a good rule of thumb is to ask yourself whether you would say the same thing if the person you're talking about were in the room with you. If the answer is no, then it's probably best to keep your thoughts to yourself. And if you do feel the need to address a problem or concern with someone, consider doing so directly and respectfully, rather than talking behind their back. This can be scary and uncomfortable, but it's also an opportunity to build trust, understanding, and authentic connection. When it comes to the third situation, being in the presence of someone who is grieving or going through a difficult time, it's important to remember that sometimes the most supportive thing we can do is simply to be present and to listen. Grief and loss can be incredibly isolating experiences, and people who are struggling often feel pressure to put on a brave face or to get over it quickly. But the reality is that healing takes time, and there's no one right way to move through the process. As a supportive presence, Your role is not to fix or advise, but rather to create a safe and non-judgmental space for the person to express their feelings and to be witnessed in their pain. This can be challenging, especially if you're someone who likes to take action or solve problems. But sometimes the most helpful thing you can do is to resist the urge to fill the silence with platitudes or suggestions, and instead to simply sit with the person in their discomfort. You might say something like, "I'm so sorry you're going through this. I can't imagine how painful it must be. I'm here to listen if you want to talk, or to just sit with you if you prefer. Whatever you need, I'm here." And then allow the silence to be there. Allow the person to take the lead in the conversation, or to simply be quiet if that's what they need. Trust that your presence and your willingness to be with them in their pain is a powerful gift in itself. Of course, it's also important to take care of yourself in these situations. Witnessing someone else's grief can be emotionally taxing, and it's okay to set boundaries and to practice self-care as needed. But by showing up with an open heart and a willingness to listen, you can create a profound sense of connection and support that can help the person feel less alone in their struggle. Moving on to the fourth situation, when you're in a heated argument or debate, it's important to remember that the goal is not to win, but to understand and to find a way forward that works for everyone involved. When emotions are running high and opinions are clashing, it can be tempting to dig in our heels and to try to prove our point at all costs. But this approach rarely leads to a productive or satisfying outcome. Instead, try to approach the conversation with a spirit of curiosity and openness. Ask questions to better understand the other person's perspective and listen actively to their responses without interrupting or mentally formulating your rebuttal. You might say something like, "I hear what you're saying, and I want to make sure I understand. Can you tell me more about why this is important to you?" Or, "I appreciate you sharing your perspective. It's different from mine, but I'm open to learning more. What experiences or beliefs have shaped your view on this?" By showing genuine interest and respect for the other person's point of view, you create a space for dialogue and exchange of ideas rather than a battle of wills. And when it's your turn to speak, focus on expressing your own thoughts and feelings clearly and calmly rather than attacking or blaming the other person. Use I statements to take ownership of your own experience and avoid you statements that can come across as accusatory or judgmental. For example, instead of saying, "You always do this, you're so stubborn and unreasonable," try saying, "I feel frustrated when we have conversations like this. I'm having a hard time understanding your perspective, and I'm worried that we're not making progress towards a solution." By expressing yourself in a way that is honest but also respectful and non-defensive, you create an opening for the other person to do the same. And remember, it's okay to take a break if the conversation is getting too heated or unproductive. You might say something like, "I'm feeling pretty overwhelmed right now, and I don't think I'm communicating as clearly as I'd like to. Can we take a few minutes to cool down and regroup? And then come back to this with fresh eyes." By giving yourself and the other person some space to process and recharge, you create the conditions for a more thoughtful and constructive dialogue when you return. Finally, when it comes to the fifth situation, being in doubt or unsure of what to say, it's important to remember that silence can be a powerful tool for reflection and discernment. In a culture that values quick thinking and decisive action, it can be tempting to feel like we always need to have an answer or an opinion at the ready. But the reality is that some questions or issues are complex and multifaceted, and rushing to judgment can often do more harm than good. When you find yourself in a situation where you're not sure what to say, or where you feel like you need more information or perspective before weighing in, give yourself permission to take a step back and to be silent for a moment. You might say something like, "That's a great question, and to be honest, I don't have a clear answer right now. I need some time to think it through and to gather more information before I can give you a thoughtful response. Can I get back to you on this in a day or two?" By being honest about your uncertainty and your need for more time, you show respect for the complexity of the issue and for the importance of speaking with integrity and care. And in the meantime, use the silence as an opportunity for reflection and discernment. Consider seeking out diverse perspectives and sources of information, and sit with the question or issue in a spirit of openness and curiosity. Ask yourself what values or principles are at stake here. What impact might different responses or actions have on myself and others? What feels most aligned with my deepest beliefs and commitments? By taking the time to sit with the question and to listen for the wisdom of your own inner voice, you create the space for a response that is thoughtful, authentic, and in service of the highest good. And when you do feel ready to speak, let your words be guided by a deep respect for the humanity and dignity of everyone involved. Speak from a place of humility and openness, and be willing to continue learning and growing in your understanding. Because ultimately, that's what true wisdom and leadership is all about. It's not about having all the answers or being right all the time, but about being willing to engage in the messy, complex work of dialogue, discernment, and growth. And it all starts with the simple, powerful act of knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, of trusting in the wisdom of our own inner voice, and of using our words and our presence to create a world of greater understanding, compassion, and connection. So as we come to the end of our exploration of the power of silence, I want to leave you with a few final thoughts and reflections. First and foremost, remember that cultivating the habit of intentional silence is a practice, not a destination. It's something we have to commit to every day in every interaction and every moment of choice. There will be times when we slip up, when we react instead of respond, or when we say things we later regret. But the beauty of this practice is that every moment offers a new opportunity to begin again, to recommit to our highest values and aspirations. So be gentle with yourself as you learn and grow. Celebrate the moments of success and learn from the moments of challenge. And trust that every step you take towards greater self-awareness, compassion, and intentionality is a step towards a more peaceful and connected world. Secondly, remember that the power of silence is not just about what we say or don't say, but about the quality of presence we bring to every interaction. When we're truly present with ourselves and others, when we're listening deeply and responding with care and intention, we create a space of profound connection and healing. We communicate not just with our words, but with our energy, our body language, and our full attention. We create a felt sense of safety, respect, and trust that allows for authentic sharing and growth. So as you go forth from this moment, I invite you to bring your full presence to every conversation and every encounter. To listen not just with your ears, but with your whole being. To speak not just with your words, but with your heart and your highest intentions. And finally, remember that the power of silence is ultimately about creating a world of greater peace, understanding, and love. When we choose to be silent in moments of anger or judgment, we create space for empathy and compassion to arise. When we listen deeply to those who are grieving or in pain, we offer a healing balm of presence and care. When we approach difficult conversations with curiosity and respect, we build bridges of understanding and cooperation. And when we take the time for reflection and discernment before speaking, we bring more wisdom, integrity, and care to every word we utter. These are the building blocks of a more just, compassionate, and sustainable world. And they start with each one of us in every moment of every day. So let us go forth from this place with renewed commitment to the practice of intentional silence and to the cultivation of a more loving and peaceful world. Let us trust in the wisdom of our own inner voice and in the power of our presence to heal and transform. And let us remember that every word we speak, every action we take, and every moment of silence we choose ripples out into the world in ways we may never fully know. May we use our words and our silence to create a world of greater understanding, compassion, and love. May we be the change we wish to see, and may we always strive to communicate with wisdom, care, and respect. Thank you for being here, for listening with an open heart and mind, and for your willingness to embrace the power of silence in service of a more beautiful world. I believe in you. I'm grateful for you. And I'm excited to see how you'll use these teachings to create more peace, more connection, and more love in your own life and in the lives of those around you. So go forth with courage, with compassion, and with the quiet confidence that comes from knowing that your presence and your words have the power to change lives and to change the world. May you always find the wisdom to know when to speak and when to stay silent, and may you use that wisdom to create a life and a world of profound beauty, meaning, and love.